We're just moments away from the president's joint press statement with his Chinese counterpart. President Trump's tough talk already on North Korea has gone far. According to some people, including former Secretary of State John Kerry, it's gone too far. In an interview with CNN's Christiane Amanpour, Kerry criticized President Trump for his stance toward North Korea and its leader, Kim Jong-un.
I think the rhetoric to date has, frankly, stepped over the line with respect to the messages that are being sent. It's given North Korea a reason to say, hey, we need a bomb, because if we don't have a bomb, we're going to, not be able to protect ourselves, and they'll come after us.
Joining me now, Congressman Ron Desantis from the House Foreign Affairs Committee and former military advisor Rebecca Heinrichs. Thank you both for being in.
Good evening.
Congressman, let's start with this idea of rhetoric, because we've debated this on the show a couple of times in recent weeks, because this is what the president is doing right now. He's there in North Korea. He's had some very tough talk. And it seems like most of the folks across the aisle from you, the Democrats, think that he's gone way too far, including the former Secretary of State, who we might add. A lot of this evolution of the nuclear program in North Korea happened on his watch.
They did nothing in the Obama administration for 8 years. They let the problem get worse. And obviously, they've created a new problem, I believe, with what they've done with Iran, which will be the North Korea 5 or 10 years from now. So I think it's fine for them to criticize the president, but he sees a problem. He realizes we're on an unsustainable course, so he's working in a variety of ways, including with rhetoric, but also with economic pressure. He's marshaling military resources. I think it's clear from his rhetoric that there's a credible threat of force on the table. I hope we don't have to use that, but if you don't have that, then North Korea is not going to listen to you. So I think it's great for them chirping on the sidelines. They've given the president this mess, and he's trying to deal with it.
And he is, and part of that, Rebecca, of course, is now dealing with China. And he has a very different take on China than he did during the campaign, because now, obviously, as a world leader, they have to work together. We want to play a little bit of how he described China when he was on the campaign trail, hoping to become president.
We can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they're doing. It's the greatest theft in the history of the world.
Okay, so now today, though, we saw just moments ago there he's praising them for the things they have done to try to help corral North Korea, very publicly saying, you've kicked in these banking sanctions. We really appreciate that. But there's a lot more for you to do, and we hope you're going to do it.
Sure. President Trump, this is sort of businessman Trump. This is what he does. He gets criticized by a lot of people for not having this sort of coherent strategy towards China. But what he does is he comes out really strong, and he hits China, with everything. And he sort of goes through the litany of problems that he sees that they have, called them a currency manipulator. They're an IP theft, et cetera. And then what he does is he sort of backs off of that. And so in a way, the Chinese can sort of feel like they're getting a win here, or he's meeting them in the middle. So he goes really hard, and then he sort of backs off to try to get what he really wants. And what President Trump really wants with China right now, what the alligator closest to the boat is, because there's a lot of alligators, it's help with North Korea. And that is where China is really going to play the biggest role here, because China is, to a large degree, the great enabler of North Korea. It's the trade with China that keeps North Korea's nuclear missile program alive. And so that's what President Trump really needs help with when it comes to China.
The statistic is that 90% of North Korea's trade is done with China. And there's this issue of these massive coal imports into China that they get from North Korea. And Congressman, whether or not China would have the ability to replace something like that enormous amount of coal that is very critical to their economy and operations, because they have interests that are different than ours, and what they need in that region and what we want in that region can be two very different things. But because of all that trade between the two and that shared border, they may have to be convinced in a different way.
Well, they've always believed that the collapse of the North Korean regime would not be in their interest, because they think that would lead to the reunification of Korea, and that there would be U.S. troops on the Chinese-Korea border at that point. I don't think we really have any intention of putting troops if the Korean Peninsula were reunified, but that's been their view. So I think what the president's trying to do is change that calculation. Look, if we continue to pump money, if you continue to pump money and trade with North Korea, you keep them afloat, they can engage in all this destabilizing activity. That's not in your interest, China. And I think he's leveraging economic, I think he's leveraging political, and I think he is leveraging our military power in the region for doing that. So China has not been willing to really change their calculation up to this point. I think the president's done a lot of good things to get him there. Hopefully this trip we get some progress.
All right, we'd like for you guys to stick around, because there's much more to discuss.